The Complete Grimm's Fairy Tales. This is the Valiant Little Tailor. One summer's morning a little tailor was sitting on his table by the window. He was in good spirits and sewed with all his might. Then came a peasant woman down the street, crying, "Good jam's cheap! Good jam's cheap!" This rang pleasantly in the tailor's ears, and he stretched his delicate head out of the window and called, "Come here, dear woman. Here you will get rid of your goods." The woman came up the 3 steps to the tailor with a heavy basket that he made her unpack all the pots for him. He inspected each one and lifted it up and put his nose to it. And at length he said, "The jam seems good to me, so weigh me out 4 ounces, dear woman. And if it is a quarter of a pound, that is of no consequence." The woman had hoped to find a good sale and gave him what he desired, but went away quite angry and grumbled. "Now this jam shall be blessed by God," cried the little tailor, "and give me health and strength." And so he brought the bread out of the cupboard and cut himself a piece right across the loaf and spread the jam over it. "This won't taste bitter," said he, "but I will just finish the jacket before I take a bite." And he laid the bread near him and sewed on, and in his joy made bigger and bigger stitches. In the meantime, the smell of the sweet jam rose to where the flies were sitting in great numbers, and they were attracted and descended on it in hosts. "Hi, who invited you?" said the little tailor, and he drove the unbidden guests away. The flies, however, understood no German, and would not be turned away, but came back again in ever-increasing companies. And the little tailor at last lost all his patience, and drew a piece of cloth from under the hole of his work table, and said, "Wait, I will give it to you," and struck it mercilessly on them. When he drew it away and counted, there lay before him no fewer than 7, dead with their legs stretched out. "Are you a fellow of that sort?" said he. He could not help admiring his own bravery. "The whole town shall know of this." And the little tailor hastened to cut himself a girdle and stitched into it and embroidered on it large letters, "7 at one stroke." What the what the town, he continued, "the whole world shall hear of it," and his heart wagged with joy like a lamb's tail. The tailor put on the girdle and resolved to go forth into the world, because he thought his workshop was too small for his valor. Before he went away, he sought out about in the house to see if there was anything which he could take with him. However, he found nothing but an old cheese, and so he put it in his pocket. In front of the door he observed a bird which had caught itself in the thicket, so it had to go into his pocket with the cheese. Now he took to the road boldly, and it was light and nimble. He felt no fatigue. The road led him before a mountain, and when he reached the highest point, there sat a powerful giant looking peacefully about him. The little tailor went bravely up to him and spoke to him. "Good day, comrade. So you are sitting there overlooking the widespread world? I'm just on my way thither and want to try my luck. Have you any inclination to go with me?" The giant looked contemptuously at the tailor and said, "You ragamuffin, you miserable creature." "Oh, indeed," answered the little tailor, and unbuttoned his coat and showed the giant the girdle. "There you may read what kind of man I am." The giant read, "7 at one stroke," and thought the, they had been the men whom the tailor had killed, and began to feel a little respect for the tiny fellow. Nevertheless, he wished to try him first, and took a stone in his hand and squeezed it together, and so that a drop of water came out of it. "Do that likewise," said the giant, "if you have any strength." "Is that all?" said the tailor. "That is child's play with us." And he took his hand in his pocket and brought out the soft cheese and pressed it until the liquid ran out of it. "Ah," he said, "that was a little better, wasn't it?" The giant did not know what to say, and could not believe that this little man. Then the giant picked up a stone and threw it so high that his eye could scarcely follow it. "Now, little mite of a man, do likewise." "Well thrown," said the tailor, but after some stone came back down to the earth again. "I will throw you one which you shall never come back down at all." And he put it into his hand and took out the bird and threw it in the air. The bird, delighted with its liberty, rose and flew away and did not come back. "How does that shot please you, comrade?" asked the tailor. "You can certainly throw," said the giant. "But now we will see if you are able to carry anything properly." And he took the little tailor a mighty oak tree which lay there and fell to the ground. "If you are strong enough, help me carry this tree out of the forest." "Readily," answered the little man. "Take you the trunk on your shoulders, and I will raise the branches and the twigs, and after all, they are the heaviest." And the giant took the trunk onto his shoulder, and the tailor seated himself on a branch, and the giant, who could not look around, had to carry the whole tree with the little tailor into the bargain. He behind was quite merry and happy, and whistled the song. 3 tailors rode forth from the gate, as if he were carrying the tree with a child's play. The giant, after he had dragged the heavy burden part of the way, could go no further, and cried, "Hark you! I shall have to let you the tree fall." And the tailor sprang nimbly down and seized the tree with both arms, as if he had been carrying it, and said to the giant, "You are such a great fellow, you cannot even carry that tree?" And then he went over and passed a cherry tree. The giant laid hold to the top of the tree where the ripest fruit was hanging, bent it down and gave it into the tailor's hand and bade him to eat. But the little tailor was much too weak to hold the tree, and when the giant let go, it sprang back again, and the tailor was tossed into the air with it. When he had fallen down again without injury, the giant said, "What is this? Have you not strength enough to hold on to a weak twig?" "There is no lack of strength," answered the little tailor. "Do you think that anything to a man who has been struck down 7 at one blow? I leapt over the tree because the huntsmen are shooting down there in the thicket. Jump as I did, if you can get over it." The giant made an attempt, but could not get over the tree, and remained hanging in the branches, and so that this also had the tailor keep the upper hand. The giant said, "If you are such a valiant fellow, come with me into our cavern, and spend the night with us." The little tailor was willing, and followed him, and when they went into the cave, other giants were sitting there by the fire. Each of them had roasted a sheep in his hand, and was eating it. The little tailor looked around and thought, "It is much more spacious than my workshop." And the giant showed him a bed which he was to lie down in and sleep. The bed, however, was too big for the little tailor, and he did not lie down into it, but crept into a corner. When it was midnight, and the giant thought the little tailor was lying sound asleep, he got up, and took a great iron bar, cut through the bed with one blow, and thought he had finished off the grasshopper for good. With the earliest dawn, the giants went into the forest, and had quite forgotten about the little tailor, when all at once he walked up to them, and quite merrily and boldly. The giants were terrified. They were afraid he would strike them all dead, and ran away in a great hurry. The little tailor went onwards, always following his own pointed nose, and after he had walked for a long time, he came to a courtyard of a royal palace, where he felt weary, and he lay down on the grass and fell asleep. Whilst he lay there, the people came and inspected him on all sides, and read his girdle, 7 at one blow. "Ah," said they, "what does the great warrior here do in the midst of peace? He must be a mighty lord." They went and announced him to the king, and gave their opinion that if a war should break out, this would be a weighty and useful man, who ought on no account be allowed to depart. The council pleased the king, and sent one of his courtiers to the little tailor to offer him military service when he awoke. The ambassador remained standing by the sleeper, and waited until his limbs stretched, and opened his eyes, and then conveyed to him this proposal. "For this very reason have I come here," said the little tailor. "I am ready to enter the king's service." When he was therefore honorably received, and a special dwelling was assigned to him. The soldiers, however, were set against the little tailor, and wished him to be 1,000 miles away. "What is to be the end of this?" they said to themselves. "If we quarrel with him, and he strikes about him, 7 of us will fall at every blow. Not one of us can stand against him." They came therefore to the decision, and betook themselves in a body to the king, and begged for their dismissal. "We are not prepared," said they, "to stay with a man who kills 7 at one stroke." The king was sorry for the sake of one he should lose all his faithful servants, and wished he had never set his eyes on the tailor, and would willingly have been rid of him again. But he did not venture to give a dismissal, for he dreaded lest he should strike him and all his people dead, and place himself on the royal throne. He thought about it for a long time, and at last found good counsel. He sent to the little tailor, and caused him to be informed that he was such a great warrior, he had at once to make a request of him. In a forest of his country lived 2 giants, who caused great mischief with robbing and murdering and ravaging and burning, and no one could approach them without putting themselves in danger of death. If the tailor conquered and killed these 2 giants, he would give him his only daughter as a wife, and half of his kingdom as a dowry, and likewise 100 horsemen should go with him to assist. "That would indeed be a fine thing for a man like me," thought the little tailor. "One is not offered a beautiful princess and half the kingdom every day of one's life." "Oh, yes," replied, "I will subdue the giants, and do not require the help of 100 horsemen to do it. He who can hit 7 with one blow needs not be afraid of 2." And so the little tailor sent forth with the hundreds huntsmen followed him. And when he came to the outskirts of the forest, he said to his followers, "Just stay here waiting. I am alone. Will soon finish off the giants." And then he bounded into the forest, and looked about right and left. And after a while he perceived both the giants. They lay sleeping under a tree and snored so that the branches waved up and down. The little tailor, not idle, gathered 2 pockets full of stones and climbed up to the tree. And when he was halfway up, he slipped down a branch until he was sat just above the sleepers, and then let one stone fall above the other and the breast of onto one of the giants. For a long time the giant felt nothing, but at last he woke and pushed his comrade and said, "Why are you knocking me?" "You must be dreaming," said the other. "I'm not knocking you." And they laid themselves down to sleep again. And then the tailor threw a stone down at the second. "What is the meaning of this?" cried the other. "Why are you pelting me?" "I'm not pelting you," answered the first, growling. And they disputed a little time, but as they were weary they let the matter rest and closed their eyes once more. The little tailor began his game again and picked up out biggest stones and threw it at all his might at the first giant. "That is too bad," cried he, and sprang up like a madman and pushed his companion against the tree until it shook. And the other paid him back in the same coin, and they got into such a rage that they tore up trees and belabored each other for so long that they at last both fell down dead on the ground at the same time. Then the little tailor leapt down. "It is a lucky thing that they did not tear up the tree that I was sitting, and I should have had to spring on to another like a squirrel, but we tailors are nimble." And he drew out his sword and gave each of them a couple thrusts in the breast, and went to the horsemen and said, "The work is done. I have finished both of them off. But it was hard work. They tore up the trees, and in sore need defended themselves with them. But it is all to no purpose, for when a man like myself comes, who can kill 7 in one blow." "But are you not wounded?" asked the horseman. "No need to concern yourself about that," answered the little tailor. "They have not bent one hair of mine." Then the horsemen would not believe him and rode into the forest. And there they found the giants swimming in their own blood, and all around them the torn up trees. The little tailor demanded the king's promised reward, and he, however, repented his promise, and again bethought himself that he could get rid of the hero. "Before you receive my daughter and half the kingdom," he said to him, "you must perform one more heroic deed. In the forest roams a unicorn which does great harm, and you must catch it first. I fear one unicorn less than 2 giants. 7 at one blow is my kind of affair." He took a rope and an axe with him and went forth into the forest, and again bade those who went with him to wait outside. He did not long seek. The unicorn soon came before him and rushed directly on to the tailor, as if it would gore him with its horn without more ado. "Softly, softly, it cannot be done more quickly as that." And he stood and still and waited as the animal came quite close, and then sprang nimbly behind the tree. The unicorn ran against the tree with all its strength, and stuck its horn so fast in the trunk had not enough strength to draw it out again, and thus was caught. "Now I have got the bird," said the tailor, and when he came out from behind the tree and put a rope around its neck, and when with its axe he hewed the horn out of the tree, and when all was ready he led the beast away and took it to the king. The king still would not have promised his reward, and made a third demand. Before the wedding the tailor was to catch a wild boar, and that which made great havoc in the forest, and the huntsmen should give him their help. "Willingly," said the tailor. "That's child's play." And he did not take the huntsmen with him into the forest, and they were pleased that they did not go, for the wild boar had several times received them in a manner that which they had the inclination to lie in wait for him. When the boar perceived the tailor, it ran on him with a foaming mouth and whetted tusks, and was about to throw him onto the ground, but the hero fled and sprang into a chapel which was near, and up in the window at once, and in and out, and one bound again. And the boar ran in after him, but the tailor ran outside and shut the door behind it. Then the raging beast, which was too heavy and awkward to leap out of the window, was caught. And the little tailor called the huntsmen thither, and said they might see the prisoner with their own eyes. The hero, however, went to the king, who was now, whether he liked it or not, obliged to keep his promise, and gave him his daughter and half the kingdom. Had he known that it was not no warlike hero, but a little tailor who was standing before him, it would have gone to his heart still more than it did. The wedding was held with great magnificence and small joy, and out of a tailor a king was made. And after some time the young queen heard her husband say in dreams at night, "Boy, make me a doublet, patch me pantaloons, or else I will wrap the yard measure over your ears." And then she discovered in what state of life the young lord had been born, and the next morning complained her wrongs to her father, who begged him to help her get rid of her husband, who was nothing else but a tailor. The king was comforted, and said, Leave your bedroom door open this night, and my servants shall stand outside, and when he is fallen asleep, you shall go in and bind him and take him on board a ship, which shall carry him into the wide world." The woman was satisfied with this, but the king's armor-bearer, who had heard it all, and was friendly with the young lord, informed him of the whole plot. "I'll put a screw into that business," said the little tailor. And at night he went to his bed with his wife at the usual time, and when she thought he had fallen asleep, she got up and opened the door and then lay down again. The little tailor, who was only pretending to be asleep, began to cry out in a clear voice, "Boy, make me a doublet, and patch me the pantaloons, and I will wrap the yard's measure over your ears. I smote 7 in one blow. I killed 2 giants. I brought away 1 unicorn, and caught a wild boar. And am I to fear those who are standing outside this room?" And with this, the man heard the tailor speaking thus. They were overcome by a great dread, and ran as if the wild huntsmen were behind them, and none of them would venture anything further against him. So the little tailor was and remained a king to the end of his life.